All right. Here we are. Another Friday, another relaxing night. Hopefully, it's Casual Friday at Yoddah Live. Who knows? Time will tell. So, people are starting to trickle in, so I'll give it a minute or so or more. Who knows? In the meantime, this is Yoddah Live. Today is Friday, September 19th, 2025. I know this because the internet tells me so. And I am Yoddah, spelled Yodddah, because film studios are litigious. And I hope everybody's enjoying their Friday. We had another fun game with Danny playing Trivial Pursuit. It was, as I predicted, it was a low scoring game because it was a fairly hard category. It was the silver screen edition, but all the films referenced were before 1983. All right. And I'm sweaty as always, so pardon me while I dab. Such an attractive thing to do on camera. But I figure it's better than having you watch a fat guy sweat. Okay, what do we got here? All right, Danny's running a few minutes late, but that is okay. Do, 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 do. What do we got going here? Let's see. Do I have a, yes, I do have a goal up. All right, just lazily checking on all my technology and all the settings, making sure everything's okay. Do, 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 do. All right, so got a few people in. Friday is, since it's so casual, people trickle in slowly, so I'm used to that. Hello, Common Sense. Good to see you. Thank you for sharing all those videos with me. It makes it easy for me to find out what's going on, since I have a bunch of people sending me videos, and it's great. I actually that's like the main way I know what's going on in America, is that people send me a bunch of videos about it. We have user 6170, etc. Dangerfield is here. Johnny A is here. So if you haven't done so already, over my head next to my name there should be an orange heart, referred to as a heart me. And if you send one of those, it's good for the algorithm. What I've been told is that that is the best indicator of what the algorithm judges. So, uh, do the harmony. If for some reason you don't see the orange heart, no worries. You can go to the bottom row where you look at the gift icon and click on that, and then look for Heart Me. You might have to scroll, but you're looking for Heart Me, 2 words, and then you could send that. It's one TikTok coin, no big deal. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy, as the saying goes. So, as always, we've got stuff to do as this as this progresses. Hello, Jude. Good to see you again. Um, yeah, so, you share, you do the heart me, and then spend the rest of the night tapping. That's the key thing. Where did this go? Here we go. So, just as a reminder, there is no politics tonight or tomorrow night. Unless something really dire happens, Fridays are devoted to casual conversation, and Saturdays pretty much the same. I like to call it Chill Saturday or Saturday Chill, and that all helps. It helps to get away from politics. Slappy Noises, interesting username, says Bald Power. All right, whatever that is, that sounds interesting. Ms. M, hello. Two pairs, hello. Welcome to Yoddah Live. Dustin, welcome to Yoddah Live. We're going to get cooking in just a moment. We like to get as many taps as possible, many likes as possible before we start rolling, just to, because frankly, it takes until 10,000 likes just to be mentioned on the For You page. 1,000 is like the entry fee. It's sort of like, okay, we know you're there. But then 10,000 is when they start putting you on the For You page. And that's where a lot of people find lives. And Grandpa Danny is here. Excellent. Why am I yawning? Have not yawned all day. I don't understand this. Maybe it's the way I'm sitting. I don't know. It might be bad posture. So let's see. Ah, excellent. Slappy movies, slappy noises. I don't know. It says slappy movies. That's funny. Slappy noises. Thank you for letting me know that I showed up on the For You page. That's good stuff. Good to know. Just sloppy. Slappy, rather. Just slappy. That's funny. All right. So the tapper in chief has arrived. Danny has said, thank you for tapping and sharing this live. Our first goal is 10,000. Right on. Oh, and Danny is taking care of the chili pepper situation. Danny is in beast mode. He does like 7 things all at the same time. It's amazing. Thank you, Danny. I'm going to update my live goal now. As you know, we're greedy. We don't just settle for one live goal. We got to have more, more, more. How do you like me? How do you like me? I think that's a Donna. No, that's not a Donna Summer song. It's another lady from the disco era. Thank you, Danny, for sharing out the live. Um, all right, we've got Melvin here. Hello, welcome. All right, we're starting to gain some steam. We're starting to get some people in here. Some of you can see, especially on this platform, that there is a word over my head: joy. Simple. We're going to get into it momentarily. But let's keep tapping. With 5 of us in here, we could easily get to 10,000, no problem. Only takes a few minutes of concentrated tapping. I like to go with 2 fingers, makes it go by real fast. Sometimes I get crazy and go 3 fingers and like a galloping type of thing. That works pretty well too. But sometimes it doesn't register. I don't know. It sort of has to catch. Like you have to Sometimes I have to tap single taps for a minute and then switch to two or three fingers. uh, what a goofy thing to be talking about. But anyway, all right. People are sharing. That's a beautiful thing. Thank you, one and all. All right, so let's bring Danny up and get the ball rolling. All right, Danny accepted my invitation. How you doing tonight, Danny?
I'm doing wonderful. Now I'm here.
There you
Sorry I
go.
was a few minutes late.
Oh, it's no worries at all. We all have to
I
live life.
I actually was on another panel and on Jaded panel for about 5 minutes, and I wanted to, spread the news about our Trivial Pursuit today and how it went. And of course, he was on the panel for a short period, so thought it would be good to do a little self-advertising and
Sure.
promotion.
And I'm sorry, whose live were you on?
Jaded.
Oh, Jaden. I gotcha, gotcha. Jaden is a good
I was on there
dude.
for about 5 minutes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Yeah, I like his lives. I like his content. You know, he's just a straight shooter, basically.
he is. He is a good guy. I've
Mm,
I've enjoyed. I friended with him earlier on my days of TikTok. I met him on TikTok. So,
yeah,
and a lot of them on the panel were all friends of mine that follow me. So it was nice, to see Shell and Eddie
yeah.
and Tiffany and you know, Poet. So it was good and optimistic had arrived right before I left. So
Oh, I didn't even notice that. Okay, that's good.
yeah, I left over there. So it was nice.
Oh, on Jaded's
So joy.
thing.
We're
Yeah,
talking about joy today, huh?
yeah, and we're definitely going to get to that. So yeah, I found today's trivia game very interesting. I did predict, just on a gut feeling, that it was going to be a low scoring game, and it definitely was. But I thought that was an interesting mix of questions because it really spanned a lot of time. Like it was
Oh yeah.
what it sounded like, at least a 50-year span of time for the films that they talked
20s
about.
to the 70s. Yeah, 20s
Yeah.
to the 70s.
Well, it went actually to
Yeah.
the 80s. It went.
Yeah, there was a question there about the 80s too,
There
but
were a few. Yeah,
majority of it,
there were at least a few.
yeah.
But
Yep.
yeah, I mean, they it was. I was surprised. I definitely got lucky on a lot of those questions because I've seen a lot of films in my lifetime, but I don't always remember what I saw, and I certainly don't remember the details of them. Sometimes I can guess, but
Right.
I thought it was a very challenging game, and it was a fun game, and it's funny how some people they really don't get that the game is not about winning or losing. It's just about having fun. You know, it's I would encourage anyone that wants to come to Trivial Pursuit, just like, don't worry about whether you get any points. Like, just have fun. You know,
Yep.
I think our interactions are a lot of fun. The
It
way we
is.
tease each other, the wild things that people say in between questions. Funny stuff.
Yeah. Slappy, in your question in the chat, yes, we do this live every Friday at 3 p.m. Pacific time on my channel, The Way of Positive Change. It's Casual Friday. And please join us every Friday for Trivial Pursuit. This coming Friday, it will be Baby Boomers edition. It'll be a lot of fun.
1946 to 1964. Um, so, and the questions aren't necessarily going to be those years, but that's the baby boomer era. And yeah, Slappy, the best thing to do is click on Danny's profile photo right there and follow him. And when you go into his profile, just select the bell icon in the upper right hand, and you can be notified when he goes live. But like there are a few things that I actually have on my calendar, even though I know Danny's schedule, but I still want to make sure that I don't miss things. So I put them on my calendar.
Yep.
But it's worth the effort. I like to say that it is the most fun you can possibly have on all of social media.
Yep. And I'm also on Monday and Wednesday at 3 p.m. Pacific for the Way of Positive Change for current events, what's going on in politics and other things like the firing of Jimmy Kimmel and all that. So just, you know, come and join us.
Yes, Slappy says I was left home alone as a kid a lot, although the way you spelled it is not actually an English word, but I know you mean a lot. I
Yes.
watched History, Discovery, and Jeopardy for
And
fun. Yeah,
Jeopardy.
good
Yep.
stuff. Yeah, Jeopardy is one of those games where um, I it's like hit or miss for me. I'll get a category and I feel like a genius, and then the next category I feel like an idiot.
I've noticed they got a board game called Jeopardy, which I never played, but I found it on eBay. It's used, obviously, but I'm thinking about buying it and give it a swing sometime on Friday and see how it
Yeah, I
works.
mean, to me, Jeopardy is almost exactly the same as Trivial Pursuit.
Trivial Pursuit. Yeah.
There's that added thing where you have to pose the answer as a question.
Right.
You know,
Right.
so I get it, but
You know, they used to have a board game of a TV show that I used to watch when I was a kid in the 50s called What's My Line?
hmm
And they actually had a board game of it too. And it was fun. You played it and everybody played a part, played what my line was. And you had to go off the cards of what your line was and you had a clue of what the person did, like,
and was that Groucho Marx?
no, no, that
Okay,
wasn't. Who
Alan
was
Ludd or
that?
something, one of those guys.
No, I know you're talking about. No, he was on there as a participant a few times. Uh, what's her name? God, Audrey Meadows was on there on the panel. Usually, for a while there, the guy that started with the Tonight Show wore the glasses. Played the Glenn Miller story. What in the heck was his name? Uh, Anyway, they had variety of panelists that were, one of them was Audrey Meadows, was a journalist and everything, a column writer, and then of course there were some other ones like that. I just can't remember the guy's name that was the host, uh, but it was good. Look it up on YouTube, the other platform. They have videos of the old shows. I watch them every once in a while. It's fun. For me
Nice.
anyway, as a kid.
Well, that's a
What's my
perfect
line?
segue into the topic. So this seems kind of obvious, but in times like these, I find it very important. Thank you, Vicky, for the heart me. I find it very important to seek out joy in my life. Like, just be very mindful of making sure that I feed myself joyful things. And I don't need any external stimulation to find my joy. I can do that all by myself internally if I want to. But I am curious as to how other people find joy. Because I mean, it's wide open, right? It could be a million different things that people could do, to make sure that joy is in their life. So let's start with you, Danny. What do you do?
Well, thank to the now at my age now, since I can't get out as easy as I used to and do other things outside, which I used to love to do. I used to love to work on my cars and detail them and customize them and restore them and stuff like that. 'Cause that was a big hobby of mine when I was younger through the years. But now my joy is what I've found with the internet. I do a lot of things on the internet that bring me joy. Getting on the other platform that I just mentioned and looking up old shows I used to watch as a kid and my family used to watch. And that means a lot to me. Like the what you just mentioned, What's My Line, Highway Patrol, Sky King, uh, the kids say the darndest thing with Art Linkletter, stuff like that that I used to watch when I was younger, and the Mickey Mouse Club when I was a little kid, uh, and American Bandstand. You can actually see episodes of American Bandstand on because I love music,
Hmm.
and back then that was my era of music back then. You
Right.
can see Soul Train. I used to watch that back in the 70s. That was a real popular show that I used to watch. Even though I didn't always get to catch them, we didn't have way of rerunning or recording back then yet. So I had to catch them when I could. But just and music in general, and naturally, if it wasn't for the internet today with all these different apps and platforms, I would not have met you, Yoda. That's a prime example right there. That brought me a lot of joy when you came to visit me here, and meeting Sherry and AC came to my house. Jordan has been to my house several times now, and I wouldn't have had that without the TikTok and the internet.
Right.
So it's great. That's joy to me, and to see my grandkids grow up, obviously, and my kids, um, come of age and doing well and all that. So that's what brings me joy.
So, part two to that question is, what is the most joyful moment that you can recall?
Hmm. Right now or anytime in my life,
Anytime.
the most joyful moment was to see my daughter Amy being born in the delivery room. I'd have to honestly say. I got to cut the
S-
cord. I saw her come out. I held her with first before her mother got her. That was probably the biggest joy of my life.
So, if you would, I would love for you to take us back to that day and tell me, what stood out for you. What do you remember most about that? Because a lot of times with our memories, we just associate a feeling to the memory, but we don't always think about the details. And there's nothing wrong with that. Obviously, it's just you can remember things any way you want to. But I am curious, like, what do you remember about that day?
Well, the best way to explain it is the night before. I had gotten off of duty. I was a drill sergeant at Fort Knox. I had already worked at that point in time. I was up awake for almost 2.5 days. I had not had any sleep, and I had just got off of what they call CQ, which is charge of quarters. And of course, they send you home for the rest of the day, and then you're not scheduled to come back till the next day. So you get off at 4 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock, or no, 6 o'clock when the first sergeant gets there, and then you go home. As soon as I got home, my wife Rosemary says, "Well," and she was on, she was in her ninth month, obviously getting ready to pop, and she says, "We need to go shop for a hide a bed, a couch with a bed in it." So, because her mother was going to come and help her take care of Amy when she was born with her, because Rosemary was a nurse also, so it was, she worked nights, so she needed the help, and I was a drill sergeant. I was gone a lot. So anyway, so we went out, we found the couch, everything. We bought the couch, and later, and we went out and got some dinner, and then we came home. And it was time to go to bed, and I was, I mean, I was tired. I needed some sleep because I hadn't been asleep in good 2.5 days. So anyway, we sit there and no more than got in bed and her water broke. So my first words out of my mouth, and I'm not proud of it. Are you sure you didn't pee the bed? You know, and so anyway, she said, no, my water broke. I said, okay. So we got her up, we got her going, we grabbed her to go bag. We had a go bag ready to go. And I put her in the car and I took her to the Ireland Army Hospital there at Fort Knox. And while she's sitting there waiting in the delivery room, waiting, because she wasn't quite ready yet, she was laying there talking to me about names. And I am trying to stay awake. I got my head on the side of her bed
Right.
and I'm trying to stay awake. And she was coming up with these names and she said, "What would you name it if it was a boy?" And I said, "Horatio." Oh God! And I was being a smart ass when I said it.
Okay.
And and
I mean,
she,
there are famous Horatios, so that would be an understandable name.
well, she didn't take it well. Anyway, so I I said, "Okay, if it's a boy, we'll name it after me. Is that okay?" And she said, "Yeah, that's fine." And and I said, "What do you want as a girl name?" And she said, I'm thinking of Amy and not spelled with a Y, with an IE. And I says, perfect. And I says, can I pick the middle name? And she says, what do you think? I said, it should be Joy.
Oh, interesting.
So her middle name when she was born was Amy Joy. And then, of course, my last name, which
Hmm.
you know well. So I, we probably waited a few more hours. And in mid morning, well, about 8 o'clock, I think it was in the morning. That's when we went in there, and I was holding her hand, as most men do. And there, if they go in there, they're holding their wife's hand. She's squeezing the hell out of it. She's making noises I haven't heard even during hot, passionate uh, activity. At least sob never came out of her mouth. But anyway, Amy was born, and she came out. She had dark brown hair, beautiful hair. It was kind of, because of being new birth was on there, that slime that's on her head and stuff. And I was just, I was love at first sight. And I knew we named her right when it was Joy. It was a joy to have her. And I cut her, doctor offered me to cut her umbilical cord. I did. Then the nurse wrapped her up in a
I don't
blanket.
understand the point of that. Why do doctors ask that question? But anyway, so how like there's that moment in the delivery
Have some
room
ketchup.
where oh,
I'm sorry. I
no
had to ask
worries.
Grandma a question. Go ahead.
There's that moment in the delivery room where the doctor yells out, "You have a girl, you have a boy, whatever it is."
Right.
So he yelled out, "You have a girl." How did you feel in that moment?
I felt my mom was there because my mom always wanted a girl. She thought I was a girl when I came out. Be honest with you, I had dark hair, long hair, and she actually said to the doctors, "Oh my God, I finally got a girl." Because my brother was the boy, the older brother. She said, and the doctor said to my mother, he said, "No, he's got a spout on him." So you got a boy. But anyway, I felt that my mom being there, my mom wasn't there. She was in Colorado and I'm in Kentucky. So, but I felt my mom coming out of me and saying that I wish my mom was here because she always wanted a girl too. And here I have a daughter. And of course, eventually my mom came out to see her, but it was a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
And then the
Yeah,
doctor gave us a little bad news. I'm going to have to make a tapping noise for a minute here. Okay. Uh, my salt shaker was not quite ready to come out. I Amy had what they call hip fix because her legs weren't kind of adjusting into the hips, each leg. So she had to wear three diapers for quite a while, those cloth diapers, for her legs to properly adjust into her hips properly. So
interesting.
she wore them for the first three diapers, probably the first 6 months of her life. We had to put three diapers on her. 'Cause back then we didn't have Pampers or any of those type, but they were all cloth diapers, that you had to wash and
Hmm.
all that stuff. But that's the only problem she had. We were blessed to have a baby that had, in good health. That was the most important thing.
Yeah, I don't know why, but I keep getting fuzz in my eye. Um, yeah, I love stories like that, and I know it's for parents, it's almost always the answer to the question, "What was your most joyful moment?" But I don't get tired of hearing the stories because there's always nuance to the stories. People feel a lot of different ways. Some people are terrified, some people are elated, and kind of everything in between. So,
Well, there is a relief when the baby's born. There is a relief. The one obviously the mom is relief, you know, but she is. It was a relief that everything was okay because there's always a danger that a pregnancy or a birth can go wrong,
hmm.
you know, and that worry was definitely my prayers were met on that day that Amy would be okay,
Right.
and Rosemary, of course, and Dangerfield. She is going to be 51 in October.
Vicky said that a nurse in the NICU told me it's a miracle when a baby is born completely healthy. I mean, that's an interesting. I mean, that sounds like an exaggeration, but I would say nurses probably know better than anybody. So that's interesting. All right, Vicky, do you have some examples of what brings you joy? If you'd like, you can come on up and tell us about it. So while we're sort of waiting, oh, Vicky's coming in. Excellent. What do you have planned for the weekend, Danny?
Nothing really important. Uh, AC is going live at 11 a.m. Pacific time tomorrow, so I'll be,
Oh, good to know.
at
Okay.
his live.
Okay.
Otherwise, we're going to be doing the same thing we always do. We watch some TV, we chit chat between each other, and we wait for 10 p.m. Eastern time for your live tomorrow night. Chill Saturday,
Nice.
and then Sunday, of course, is another day
So
with no lives.
so AC. Whoops. What happened here? AC is going live at 11 a.m. Pacific time.
Right,
Hmm.
tomorrow.
Okay.
I asked him tonight because everybody from the family was missing from Trivial Pursuit today. If you hadn't noticed, so I sent
Uh,
out an alert saying what happened. Everybody had their own little issue, but at least it wasn't me. So
I mean, people live life, man. Oops.
yeah.
What am I doing? I did the wrong date. Tomorrow's the 20th. There it is. Okay.
Yes, Tanya was there for a while, but then I didn't see her anymore.
Yeah.
And
People
Jordan was too, but
people
not,
have
but he had to
lives.
go.
So welcome, Vicky. Good to see you again.
good to see you. I had fun picking on you earlier.
Yes.
In a way, that kind of brings me joy.
Yes. Hey, that's a beautiful thing. So, uh, when you need a dose of joy, what do you do?
That one's tough in these days. I usually turn to music. I've kind of started cultivating a Spotify list of artists that bring me joy or can shift my mood. I also, just kind of try to disconnect from the world and hang out with my dogs. Right now, there's just so much going on, both in the world and in my life. I have, I'm in the process now of a referral to the Mayo Clinic in Jacksonville, which has all happened so quickly that my head is spinning. So,
Right.
but, I'm used to, Greyhound bus doctors, and now I'm going to be getting, first class airline doctors. So this will be, good to know something.
That's an
So,
interesting way to describe that. Um, when uh, when I was in the hospital for my brain surgery, it wasn't that long. We checked in on a Monday, and I was gone Sunday or midday, and what I remember was part of my strategy, so to speak, was to not take anything seriously. Just I was joking all the time. I mean, I had not made a habit of posting very personal things online, but I thought that my friends would want to know about this. And so the first thing I posted when I was admitted to the hospital, I took a photo of myself in the gowns sitting in the bed. And I explained to everybody that I was told that I have a potentially fatal brain swelling, and I'm going to be going through two brain surgeries, one on Tuesday, one on Wednesday. And I said something to the effect of, I'm sure this happened because I'm a godless heathen, right? Because I decided that if I never got out of the hospital, then I was going to leave the way I lived, because I didn't take myself seriously. I took something seriously, of course. I took fatherhood seriously. I took, supporting my family seriously, but I didn't take myself that seriously. And, you know, to me, the difference between tragedy and comedy can be 10 seconds and no more than 24 hours. Usually by a day later, I've come up with some way to joke about whatever situation that I'm in. Even if it's dire, even if it's really stressing me out, it's just a habit I have of like just trying to find the funny thing in whatever situation I'm in. So
yeah.
when you go to the hospital, what what's your strategy for making sure that you get through it as comfortably as possible?
Well, this right now, I'm not even sure what I'm looking at. It's initially a consult, but I had my daughter and I have this weird relationship where it's like she is so busy and she doesn't always approve of my being active in mm, the the community that I'm active in, and she worries about me. And so we just don't talk as often as we should. And for whatever reason, she just happened to call me Monday, and that was I just I I had not told her about everything yet and about how bad they'd been getting. And we talked, and she kind of geeked out about my little spreadsheet that I'm doing to kind of keep track of them. And she's going to help me with that. But she has told me that, we had originally, at that point, I didn't even know about Mayo. And she told me that, because I talked about going to see a movement disorder specialist in Little Rock at the University of Arkansas Hospital. And they had, she said, well, just if I can have a lead time, I will fly in and meet you, because she lives in Virginia. And that made me so proud.
That's great. Now, what are you tracking
You
with
know,
the spreadsheet?
um, I'm tracking the severity, and I'm trying to. I look for patterns in all things,
Hmm.
so I'm trying to determine if it's what triggers, like if I think it's too much caffeine, or if it's anxiety or fatigue,
Yeah.
how severe they are, and I try to do. I have grounding techniques that I do to try to, and breathing techniques, when they get to try to bring myself down, but they don't always work. And then in a pinch, that I have my alprazolam
Hmm.
that just kind of cuts things, But so I'm just trying to. I like to have data, and I think that the more data I have, the better. Especially if I'm going to be seeing someone else, because I've had, up until I started really investigating more the past 2 months or month and a half, I didn't realize that a lot of other things that I've had going on with my body are all related.
Right.
My voice being shaky, I thought it was because I cough a lot,
Interesting.
but it's probably vocal tremors. I have a situation where I swallow. Right now it's only happened when I drink, but it's almost like I feel like I'm trying to swallow a ping pong ball.
Interesting.
And I have had a swallow study, and everything's normal. So but I'm part of a group that's on the Book of Faces, that's called the International Essential Tremor Association. And so there's people from all over the world that are part of it. And I've learned so much. I've also learned that my primary medication for my tremors is also linked to urinary tract infections.
Oh, wow.
I have had back to back to back to back all year, and
Wow.
I'm under the care of a urologist.
Oh, that's
So
got to
it's
be
like,
awful. I had one once for a
oh
short
yeah,
time and I hated it.
oh yeah. And it's just, I'll get over one, and I'll be doing good for about 10 days, and then boom. And, I have to go in next month and have a procedure where they put a camera up into my bladder just to see if there's anything else going on. And I am looking forward to that one like
Yeah.
ever so much.
Yeah.
There will be joy when that is over.
Yeah. So let me ask you this, and it might sound weird, but have you talked to a chiropractor about all this?
A little bit. My car. I just saw him not too long ago. I go to my chiropractor. Is he? I don't remember the name of the. He is does this different procedure than a lot of them, where you go and they want to do is hook you up with electrodes, and come in 3 times this week, 2 times next week. He uses a gauge, and it measures the temperature on your spine, and it will tell him exactly where there were hot spots and
Hmm.
such.
Hmm.
But he does know, and so he'll usually, that tells him exactly where everything is. But he does notice that there's an awful lot of tension in my neck.
Right.
But, it's, I haven't really had the head tremors that people with advanced ET get, at least not yet. Um, my sister and I, we were convinced for quite a while that my brother had Parkinson's.
Mm.
But my brother is one of those that's like, no, I don't. He will deny everything, and find some herb thing or something in one of his books that he just needs to eat more celery. you know, my brother is an interesting one. He's my older brother that I was referring to earlier. That I like Danny a whole lot better,
Well,
but
interestingly
it's
enough, the doctors take the Hippocratic Oath, right? Part of which is
yeah.
first do no harm, etc. But it is interesting that the man whose name they take for that oath, Hippocrates, said, "Let thy food be as thy medicine." So I think nutrition absolutely plays a role in things. I mean,
Oh,
it's not
true.
necessarily a cure-all. I mean, if you have a compound fracture, it doesn't matter how many apples you eat. So, uh,
Right.
but
You know.
I do think that in America, nutrition is something that is completely overlooked in several different ways, and Americans are essentially lied to about how food really works. That's why everything is about coincidentally promoting food that's manufactured by these huge industries, even though the food they manufacture is very often garbage, and the way that they manufacture those foods is not good at all. And
Oh,
I
I
don't
know.
pretend to
And
know how you feed 340 million people every day, but I have a feeling that the way America does it is not optimal. And I think the health outcomes that we have might support that idea.
it's only going to get worse, unfortunately, because our farmers are losing their farms to these big corporate gigs that are going to probably be pushing more GMOs, and it's just big ugly cycle
Yeah. Well,
until
GMOs are
it
not
isn't.
inherently evil, because if you like cross pollinate plants, you're genetically modifying them. So it's not necessarily an evil thing, but you know, I'm sure the real culprit in American food, or what I call the standard American diet, because the acronym is SAD, SAD, is the chemicals. Chemicals in the
Yeah.
soil, chemicals sprayed on the food, chemicals fed to the livestock, all that stuff. It's just, I have a feeling that,
Yeah.
and all the plastic in the environment. I think I
Well,
heard
it's like,
someone say that in a, what is it, every week or every month, the average human eats a credit card size amount of plastic.
that's sad.
It's sad
It.
and it's fucking crazy. So,
Yeah.
I have a
Well,
feeling that there's a better way.
I had to have an MRI of my head back in January because I had a really bad um, spell of vertigo, and they
Mm.
wanted to make sure that there wasn't something going on with my head, with my brain. And I was joking around, and I was like, "Oh, did you see any microplastics in there?" Because they say that we've got so much in our brains already, and that they didn't seem to think that was very funny. But
Hey, listen, you're only responsible for the attempt at humor.
yeah.
can't guarantee the outcome. But the reason I asked about the chiropractor is because when I first met my second ex-wife, she was convinced that she had migraines. And the way she was describing them to me didn't sound like the way other people had described migraines. So I said, have you ever considered going to a chiropractor? Because I had been going to one at that point for probably 10 years, 9 years, something like that. And she had said that she didn't, and she thought chiropractors were bullshit and all this other stuff. I said, well, I'll tell you, two stories from my life. My son used to get back-to-back ear infections, right? He'd get one, they'd give him the penicillin, he'd last a week or two, and then he'd get another one. I took him to a chiropractor, and he was about 3 at the time. I took him to a chiropractor, and um, at that point, I had never been to one. But I took him, and the chiropractor saw him twice, a week apart, and he didn't get infection, another ear infection, until he was 13 years old. 10
Wow.
years, 10 years without
Just
an ear infection, being
adjusting to
adjusted
get those
twice.
eustachian tubes.
Yeah, because, you know, what the doctor was saying, the one that was prescribing the penicillin was, oh, he's probably going to have tubes put in his ears. And when I heard not only the description of the procedure, but all the ways that it could go wrong in the aftermath, I was like, oh, bullshit, I'm finding another way.
Yeah.
So, and the second thing is then I started going to chiropractors after that. And I know it made a big difference because when did I first start going? I think it was the year either 19, no, it couldn't have been 19, 2000. 2000 is when I first started going to a chiropractor. I found a woman uh, right near. No, that's not the first time. I'm totally wrong. No, it was around 1990 or 91 when I first started going to chiropractors. But um, I remember that at a certain point, I had stopped going. And then around the year 2000, I was walking a lot for my job, right? Because I was in the city and, running back and forth between appointments and picking a street to cold call on where I'd knock on 50 doors and all that kind of stuff. And my lower back was in so much pain.
Oh, I bet.
And I went to the chiropractor. It started to alleviate it. She recommended inserts for my shoes to balance me
Hmm.
out. That was a huge relief, right? So I believe wholeheartedly in chiropractic because it's such basic like healing. It's like I ask people that don't believe in the efficacy of chiropractic, like what would happen if you tied let's say a really tight rubber band around your wrist, right? And they'd say, well, your hand would go numb, right? And eventually your hand would fall off, right? If it
Yeah.
wasn't getting any blood flow. I said, so your spine is where every nerve passes through. Every nerve that is connected to every part of your body passes through your spine. Your spine is the central nervous system. And although we have more than one, we have a central nervous system for for our body overall. We have one in our stomach, and we have one in our heart as well. But you know, the main thing is the spine because just like what happens to your hand when you cut the blood flow, that's what happens to your organs when you cut the blood flow as well. They start to deteriorate. And all
Right.
spinal adjustment does is make sure that the blood vessels and the nerves passing through your spine are doing so efficiently. That's it. No big mystery, no big conspiracy, you know. And I think they have fantastic outcomes, and compared to surgery, their statistics are far far better. So anyway,
Oh
that's
no,
my
I know.
unofficial pitch for chiropractic.
I know I can have, be down with my back and I'll call Dr. Alexander's office and say, "Hey, I need to come in." And usually I can get in that day, and he takes the time to really suss out what the issue is, and usually it's a one and done.
Hmm.
And I'm on my way until they need him again,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, I
And
haven't gone in
I just
years, but I know how to stretch and I know how to do some basic adjustments on my own. But I left a cliffhanger earlier because I mentioned my second ex-wife. Well, she finally took my advice and went to a chiropractor, and this was a woman that I had found. I actually met my chiropractor 6 months before I met my second ex-wife, and she went there, and after her first adjustment, she felt better. And I know people are like, "Oh my God, it's a scam," because you got to keep going. Well, you got to keep doing a lot of things in life. You got to eat every
yeah,
day. You got to take a shower every day if you want to maintain your skin health. You have to drink water every day. Like, when people exercise, they exercise every day. So, what is the big thing about going, you know, in the beginning? Usually, if it's bad enough, they'll tell you 3 times a week, but eventually it's like once a month. What's the big deal in maintaining your health going once a month to a place where it facilitates your health? Like the paranoia that people have about chiropractic doesn't make any sense to me.
yeah,
Butterfly,
I have a
hello, welcome.
coworker that,
You have a coworker?
yeah, she has real bad migraines, and she goes and gets, well, she has all the meds, but she also gets the Botox injections. But she has a chiropractor that she goes to see when they get really bad, and he'll do adjustments on her neck and even up on her scalp, or not her scalp, but her skull, try to, adjust things to, and it usually gives her relief. But she's she's a lot like my sister. The weather really affects her, and of course, living in this part of the world, or this part of the states, it's storms come through and they're a doozy, and they really set her off.
There's a song by the Police called Canary in a Coal Mine. It starts with first to pull over when the atmosphere is less than perfect. Your disabilities are shaken by the slightest defect. You live your life like a canary in a coal mine. Anyway, um, like I said, I have no original thoughts. I'm reminded of music all the time. So
Yeah.
we veered into another branch of the conversation, but um, I'm going to ask you the same question that I asked Annie earlier, which is, what is the most joyful moment that you remember?
Well, it's got to be the birth of my children, although the birth of my daughter was much more traumatic than the birth of my son.
For some
My
reason, your
daughter was,
your your volume dropped.
oh, I'm sorry, the birth of my daughter was much more traumatic than the birth of my son,
Mm.
but both of them were very joyful. My daughter was premature,
Oh well,
and it was one of those where, I mean, it was 4 weeks premature. So, I mean, but
not
it was
terrible,
like,
but still, you know.
yeah, and they wouldn't let me be in one of those labor and delivery rooms. So I had to labor in one of these little closets and then wheel me down into the delivery room, and in the middle of, active labor, make me change from one table to another. And it's like, I wanted to kill them. But the doctor joked around and said next time you get pregnant, you just need to check into the hospital at conception, because once I got in there, it was boom. But my daughter she was initially fine, although there was signs of trauma when she was born. And we didn't know until she was 2 days old that she was incredibly sick and
Oh,
had
wow.
a lot of problems. She was born with a condition called jejunal atresia, and she spent close to 3 months in the NICU and 4 operations. So my
Wow.
greatest joy with her was when I finally got to bring her home from the hospital.
That's wild.
Yeah, she's now 35, and she did have to go in. Her Since it was the jejunum, it was all intestinal. She has had to have one revision because there were adhesions, and that was probably about 8 years ago. And the doctor doesn't think that she'll ever have to have another one. But and then my son, he is, that it's funny that if you have two kids, they say that you'll have one that's an angel and one that's a devil. And she was my little devil. She was cranky, grumpy. She just she'd wake up. You'd wake her up and she'd just scowl at you. And but my son, he would just raise his little head up from the crib and just smile. He was just, of course, maybe it was just part of who, we didn't, you don't we don't know enough about autism, and we didn't even know he was autistic because he was so high functioning until he was 12.
Mm.
I mean, I knew that there was something, and I fought for 4 years to get him diagnosed. But, he was always the angel kid. But they are my greatest joys.
So after that long stay in the hospital after her birth, I mean, I used to sell scales to hospitals and nursing homes, and the neonatal intensive care unit was just the worst room in the hospital. So, what was that day like when you were told that you could take her home?
Oh, I well, it was we were actually we thought that we could take her home like 3 days before we actually did. And so they had put me in a room that was real nearby the NICU because they wanted to make sure that she could still continue to gain weight before she left the hospital. And so it was a little weird because I was excited, but then she didn't. The first day she actually lost like an ounce.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got real disheartened. And then, the second day she gained back that ounce, but they were like, no, we want her to go better. And so the next day she had actually gained 2 more ounces,
Okay.
which, I mean, it's silly to talk about, weight and excitement over 2 ounces. But
Of course, it's not silly. In that
oh, I mean,
situation, it was
she
critical.
was, yeah, I mean, she was born at 6'4", and she left the hospital at 3 months old, and she weighed 5'3". So, so she lost weight because she couldn't eat for 2 months out of her life. She was fed through, it was called hyperalimentation, which is basically just vitamins and nutrients that they. So she had the newborn jaundice, and then she had the good old fashioned jaundice. We
Uh,
you know we had to that also put off her getting to go home at one point, delayed her a little bit. Actually, that delayed her last surgery, not her going home. It delayed her last surgery, and so we kind of joked around and said we were going to stick her out on the porch, at Halloween and just let her glow because she was so orange. The only regret I do have and all that is because her everything was abdominal and they did hundreds of x-rays that were, and barium x-rays and everything. A newborn, they can't shield enough. There's no way to shield that area. And so she isn't able to have any children
Oh wow.
because young infants, girls are born with all the eggs they'll ever have.
Mm-hmm.
And when they're that tiny and everything is all in one tiny little area, they could not shield the ovaries because they were too close to the intestines.
Yeah.
So that was your anatomy class for today.
Well, thankfully I knew that, but that is good
Yeah,
information. Yeah. Um, yeah, that's one of the very interesting differences between men and women is that men keep producing their fertilization for their entire life, and women seem to have a shelf life to their reproduction. So it's a weird kind of thing, weird kind of system, but it's kind of ingenious because since women are only fertile for a small window every month, it makes sense that men don't have any kind of cycle because if they did, it would probably be nearly impossible to coordinate the cycles. So
true.
I think nature did a good turn there. Um, Interesting stuff. Very interesting, and thank you for sharing all that information with us. I know that certainly couldn't have been easy. Um, yeah. So for me, and we might wind up ending on this, but for me, um, my joy comes from a lot of things on a daily basis. Um, this live show definitely contributes to my joy. Um, I I would say about half the time that I'm up here, I was considering not going up right before I came up. Like with
Funny.
like I get to about an hour before, and I'm like, oh man, I'm tired. I just don't feel like it. It doesn't fucking matter anyway. Blah 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 blah. I do all that stuff. But then I tell myself, just do it. You could always jump off if it's terrible, but just go up and start it. And then usually by the end, I'm very happy that I've done it. Hello, Amy. And that's a small thing, but it was an unexpected benefit from social media because for me, social media was always about shameless self promotion with a side benefit of staying connected with old friends. Like, like I thought about this at a certain point. I don't know when it was. Maybe I don't know, maybe 15 years ago or something, or 10 years ago, that there are now generations of people that will never use the term "I lost touch with them" because you never lose touch with people now, right? Like
Yeah, I
once
mean,
you're
there's not
connected
an
on social
excuse to.
media, you can be connected to that person and know everything about their life, and as much as they're willing to share. And some people are willing to share all of it. I'm not, but
Way
I
too
do share
much.
a lot.
I overshare sometimes.
Maybe, you know.
But it's funny. I compartmentalize. I share some things. It's like I have not told anybody on the Book of Faces about my essential tremor, with the exception of that group.
Hmm.
I haven't told the people that I am closest to, that I grew up with. I've told my sister. I haven't told my brother because my brother would go into hyperfranic mode. He'll drive up here and it'll be a scene. I'll tell him when it's time. But, and then Twitter is, because I will forever and always call it that. I'm sorry. The Dead Bird app, is my other outlet. I have some accounts that I follow because they're animal accounts that bring me joy. And then there's other accounts that I use as a launching pad for information, because it's like there's this one account that I have followed forever, and I get alerts whenever he makes a post. So it's like, okay, shit's getting real. So then I look at what he's posted and I go and check out the veracity of it, and it's like, whoa, this is, stuff's happening.
Yeah,
So
yeah. But so, the way the way I approached social media was initially um, in support of my business mostly, like, the stuff that I was doing for a living. And, that's all I really regarded it as. Like I said, the side benefit was connecting with friends, but most of it was about like, how can I, develop my business more on these platforms. So I joined everything. I've been on the Book of Faces since 2007. I just whatever's new, whatever pops up. Once a year, I do a search for the top uh, platforms, and if I'm not on one of them, I join it. You know, so it was just essentially a matter of fact for me. Just like, oh, social media. This is just something that I do. Right? I never expected to connect with four different women. Um, uh, I think three of which reached out to me, who I didn't know. When I got divorced, I went to, you know what I jokingly call the ghost of pussy past, and I was contacting women that I knew from back in the day, and one chick that I had dated when we were 17 and never had any, like, major physical action. She and I got together for a while, almost a year, and picked up where we left off. But this time there was more nudity, so that was good. But
yeah.
so I certainly didn't expect that. Uh, and then it started to be a place where I would voice my outrage about America, and you know then it became a place where I could farm for people to be interviewed on my podcast, because I had like three different versions of my podcast. One was me and my best friend talking to each other, and one was just me alone, and one was me interviewing people, and mostly coaches and stuff like that. But people from all walks of life, and so that was my orientation to social media. And on the one professional platform where people link on, right? I got I think at least two jobs from that platform, and I did some business networking on it. So everything was like very uh, utilitarian, except for the Book of Faces. That splintered off into more social stuff, but everything else was just like, how can I use this to make money, right? And then came this platform, and suddenly, like, I started getting way more followers than I had ever gotten before. Because I think the most I had ever gotten was like on, the Bird platform, where it was like, I think one of my accounts had like 1,000 or so people over several years. But like this platform just skyrocketed. I'm almost at 13,000 now, and of course, by by comparison, that's not a big deal if I'm comparing it to other creators on the platform, but comparing it to myself and my previous accomplishments on social media, it's a very big deal, you know. Um, and then this year, the platform changed for me. Back in January, I stumbled into a live. I don't remember how I got there. I don't know if I was just cruising lives or someone invited me. I don't remember at all. But I remember hearing this older guy talking about how he was going to start going live, and I was like, "Oh, these people seem nice. I'm gonna follow. I'm gonna follow him, and I'm gonna support his lives." And that was Danny. And then we just developed this amazing friendship that has morphed into a brotherhood. And like talk about unexpected. Like I never saw that coming. I never saw myself. I'm the guy who wouldn't cross a bridge or a tunnel to go date someone, that I could get laid by. And here I was hopping on a plane to fly across country to meet Danny. So, this platform has been a real benefit to my life, you know. And I hope one day to figure out how to make money here. That would be amazing if I could do that. If I could pay my bills through this platform, but that would be a big bonus. But um, so
Yeah,
yeah,
you
so
know,
one
it's
of the
interesting.
one of the places I get my joy is here.
You know, I avoided it like the plague, because everybody was like, "Oh, you've got to go to TikTok. It's so much fun." And I was like, "All you do is just flip, flip, flip." I mean, it's like, but they were all talking about all these stupid things that I wasn't interested in, and I didn't understand the algorithm and how it all worked. And I just, it was after the shutdown, and then whenever it restarted, I thought, okay, I always try to, that's the only one that I really was resistant to, because being in my what I do at work, I always try to understand the what people are going to be using or questioning me about. It's like when the Dead Bird app came out. I mean, I signed up in 2009. I was an early adopter to the Book of Faces. I was an early adopter to the the skies, the skies that are blue and other things. But
Right.
this one I just was real hesitant about. But
I was too,
I,
by the way.
whenever I,
I didn't even understand the app when I first downloaded it. I looked at it and I was like, I don't
yeah,
know what I'm looking at. What is all this? And then I just left it
yeah,
alone for a long time.
and then I just started going through, and then whenever I found something I liked, then the algorithm started to get me. And one day I stumbled upon you and Danny. Danny was down there and you guys were talking, and your voice is so soothing. And the camaraderie that you two have. And then going into some of Danny's lives. the timing doesn't always work for me because of my my time with my son is really precious to me.
Hmm.
And so we normally will have like from I'm in Central Time from 6 to 9:30 is our designated time that we hang.
Hmm.
But, if he's doing something, then I'm like tonight he was doing something, so I was able to hang out during Trivial Pursuit. But, it's been phenomenal. I mean, and just to be able to get to know, I mean, I don't know you, but to get to know people
Yeah,
and understand and see. I mean, Danny is such a phenomenal. I mean, I really do like him better than my brother, you know?
me too. Me too.
I appreciate that, Becky. And the feelings are mutual because I don't have a sister. But if I
Mm.
did, I wish it would be you. So
Well,
you're
thank
adopted.
you.
You're adopted. So
Well, thank you, because I don't know, something about the image of, with Yoda behind, in front of the white wall, just no frills, and his voice, it was just, I was like, okay, look what's going on, and just it caught me, and so I just stuck around.
That's excellent. I'm happy you did.
yes,
And
we are.
it just I think that I'm not big on saying that everything happens for a reason, but I think what winds up happening is that our intentions kind of lead us into different places. You know, whatever our particular aura or energy, however you want to describe it, is, I think we tend to seek out people that fulfill certain needs for connection. Like I know that the people in my life are all very funny, and that's not by accident. That's something that I need. I love laughter, and I don't like to be around sourpusses. I certainly don't like to be around anyone without a sense of humor. Like, that is the most
Horse
boring,
prostitute.
awful thing. Someone with no sense of humor. Oh, like I dated this one woman who would say something sarcastic. So I was like, "Oh, this sounds like fun. I'll reply with something sarcastic." And she would be like, "Oh my god!" And I'd be like, "Wait, you were sarcastic, so I was sarcastic back. I don't know why did you take it seriously."
Yeah,
you know. So that
I
only
have a
lasted a
hard
month and
time
a
with
half
that
because of
too.
that. And she was also crazy.
Yeah,
but
why
so
is it?
well, go ahead.
Why is it always the crazy ones are like that? I had one like that myself before I met Carol. That was, you know, sorry. She could be sarcastic as hell, but if you come back at her, the same way. Oh my God, I think I unalived the whole family or something, you know. And she had no sense of humor. She was
Yeah,
deadpan face,
yeah.
you know.
When I first started dating, my first date with my second ex-wife was July 1st, 1999, and so July 4th weekend was coming up, and she invited me to a barbecue at one of her relatives' homes, and she told me ahead of time, like, just want to warn you, these people are really sarcastic, and I was like, "Psh, that's like a second language to me. No worries, I'm in the right group of people." But I quickly found out that there are some people who love to dish out sarcasm but can't take it in return.
Can't take it. Absolutely.
And it caused
Like to
a
dish it out,
whole
but can't
lot of
take it.
problems for me because my
Mm.
my ex-wife was always complaining to me, and I'm like, "All right, you need to pay attention to what goes on here. Number 1, I never initiate. I am never the first one to say something sarcastic. That's just a policy of mine. because I know some people can't deal with it. So I don't lead with that, you know. And I'm one of those people where I lay in the cut, so to speak, to get the temperature of the room and gauge who's who, who's the alpha male, et cetera, et cetera. And it's like the old carpenter's creed. I measure twice and cut once, right?
Yep.
So I after she complained to me a few times, I was like, listen, here's what you need to do. You need to go to your family and tell them to leave me the fuck alone. I said, because I will never eat shit from anyone. Not your uncle, not your uncles, not your sisters, not your aunts, not your mother, not your father. I don't care who they are. If anyone comes at me, I am returning the volley. But the thing is, I'm going to do it better than they did. And they're going to
Got
be
both
upset by
barrels.
that. you know, because, it's like people say, don't bring a blank to a blank fight. Well,
Yep.
my thing is like, don't bring a spoon to a grenade fight because that's what you're dealing with me, because I never go tit for tat. As soon as someone starts, I go nuclear. you know, because I don't like people getting the better of me. So that's just my strategy. And so it's like, hey, very simple. If you people don't want to be upset by my sarcasm, don't fuck with me.
Yep.
And if you do, all
Agree.
bets are off. And I said, tell your
You know,
family that. Tell your family, don't bother me with this shit because I'm not the one starting it.
you know what you were saying earlier about people that can dish it but they can't take it. That's daddy dump. I used
Oh
to
my
say
god,
that's him.
that's the worst case I've ever seen.
He is. And I'm gonna stop right there because we're
Yeah,
not talking
yeah,
politics. So
we get how much of a man child he is. So I'm gonna end with the with my story of my son being born because no matter what cool and amazing things I've ever done in my life, I worked at the Apollo one summer and met like crazy huge celebrities and went to Bora Bora, More, and Tahiti on my honeymoon and all this other shit and been to 26 of the 50 states, blah, 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 blah. I've done a whole bunch of cool shit, banged a lot of chicks, thankfully, and just had a lot of fun in my life. Consumed a lot of illicit substances, and lived to regret it. But I have a lot of great stories. But the my greatest day, my most joyful day, was definitely the day my son was born, May 31st, 1985. And to make a long story short, what it felt like to me, because I wanted to be a father, it was all intentional. I got married. My son was born 9 months and 28 days from the day that I was married. And I only say that because people assume that since I got married at 20 and had a child at 21, that it must have been some kind of, you know, timing issue, but it wasn't. I did it in the order that is prescribed, right? And I wanted to be a father. That was something that I knew about myself from the time I was a teenager. I knew I loved children and I knew that I wanted to be a father. And what happened the day he was born, the moment the doctor said, um, it's a boy, and it wouldn't have mattered. It's a boy, it's a girl. None of that would have mattered to me. But I remember that I loved him before he was here. Women have an advantage over men in that the reality of a child is more apparent to them because the child is in their body. So they literally feel the child. We understand intellectually what pregnancy means, but we don't know what pregnancy is as men. And the time that it seems to start to get very real for men is the first time they feel the baby kick in the womb. And that's when it's like, oh shit, there's a human being in there that I'm going to be completely responsible for. And then the when the doctor yelled, "It's a boy," it felt like a switch was flipped, and my old life just fell away. It was almost like, you know, in the Matrix when they were in the elevator and he shoots down the cable and the elevator shoots up real fast. That's kind of what it felt like. Like whatever my old life was for the first 21 years and 19 days, at 21 years and 20 days when he was born, that was all done with. It was all over. And now I was a father. And to this day, it's the most meaningful part of my identity. Even in my bio, I'm like, father, grandfather, keynote speaker, seminar leader, coach, consultant, and podcaster. Like that's how I start with father when I describe myself, because that is the most meaningful thing. But that day, I just, I remember, like you, Danny, I held him first, and he fit in my two hands. Now he's 6'4", and looks like he was chiseled out of Mount Olympus. But he was a a healthy baby, 3 weeks early, but very healthy. And I remember that's the first thing I asked after the doctor said, "You have a boy." I said, "Is everything okay with him? All 10 fingers, all 10 toes. Is everything all right?" Because I know that there are a lot of people that you know have a lot of struggles because their children have issues. So it's a blessing when you have a child that is okay. And I never took that for granted. And, you know, very often when I want to manufacture joy for myself, I just think about that day. I think sometimes I'll go through the whole day because it started at 1 in the afternoon when she said she started having contractions and I started timing them. And, we went through a day of like just kind of, paying attention and not panicking and all that other stuff. And, it ended a little over 12 hours later with him arriving into the world. And it always brings me great joy to think about that, because he is truly the love of my life, you know, and thankfully, we have a very, very good relationship, one that I worked very hard to create and maintain. So I'm a lucky feller in that sense. And F513 says it's a blessing to care in the first place. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I think we can end right here. I want to thank you both for coming up and sharing your stories and, really opening up your lives to us. This is something that I am honored to be the recipient of, because I know that anyone that is going to trust me and us with this kind of information can only do that if they're comfortable, and that means you hold me in high esteem, and I truly appreciate that. So thank you both for your contribution. So Vicky, any last words before we go?
No, not really. I just wanted to thank you. As always, it was a lot of fun earlier. Tonight's been fun, but I really had a lot of fun at Trivial Pursuit.
The most fun.
Danny does such a great job with that. That was a
Yeah.
hoot.
Corralling cats, and they were hard questions too.
Oh man, yeah.
I knew all week. I was as soon as
Every now
Danny
and then
told
I'd
me that
get
it
one,
was
and I
that it
was
was
so
films.
excited.
Yeah, when he told me that it was films to 1983, I was like, oh, I think that's going to be a low scoring game, and I was right. But it was still a lot of fun questions, a lot of interesting trivia. You know, because I love that. I love films, so like film trivia is a great thing for me. I'm definitely
Oh yeah,
interested in the baby boomer edition because we're all boomers, so that's kind of interesting.
yeah.
Some of the folks on there are not, but hopefully the questions will be accessible to most of us.
Well, I'm prepared to get a lot of yeah, boomer.
Yeah, that's probably true. All right, Vicky, thank you
You'll
so
all
much
do fine.
again. Hopefully we'll see each other around the TikTok streets during the weekend. But until we meet again, have a great night.
You too. Thank you.
All right.
Bye bye, sis.
All
Bye.
right. So my older brother from another mother, last man standing as always, and I love saying that, so I'm going to say it every time you're up here. So
I'm glad that you're saying that too, because
yeah.
that means I'm still here.
That's
You
right.
know, that's a
So,
good thing.
what are your final thoughts for the evening?
I'm truly blessed to have you as a friend. That's my final thoughts. I wouldn't trade my time with you with that for anything, for any money in the world. And
Thank you.
I'm glad that we do this every evening, 6 days a week together. I think it's helped me a lot too. And along with my lives, you joining my lives and co-hosting with me, I think it's an incredible thing that we got going on, and
Yeah,
I hope we can do it uh, for many years to
yeah,
come, my friend, as
yeah.
long as I'm still here.
Thank you,
So
Vicky. We love you too. Um, so yeah, I mean, I don't know if this is the right word for it, but it's the first word that came to me. Like going on my live and joining your live, especially, it feels important to me. Or I don't know if that's the best word for it, but that's just the feeling that I have. Like I feel like I'm committed to it, and not as like some kind of drudgery, not as something that I feel any pressure to do or that I have to do. It's literally something that I look forward to doing every day. You're
absolutely,
3 days a week, my 6 days a week. The fact that, like you said, we are together 6 days a week, almost every week without fail, with exceptions here and there. But it just feels like something that is important and good for me to do. It feels wonderful. My relationship with you is amazing. I, who'd have thought? Who'd have thought that this goofy platform would have given us as much as it has? So I certainly agree
I
with you on,
agree.
on that front.
Yeah, little brother, we got a good thing going, and
Absolutely.
let's just keep it going as long as we can. We'll ride the storm out.
Yeah,
You know,
I think so. That's a good plan, Danny. So I'm sure I'll talk to you soon. Have a great night.
I know we will. We got the bat numbers between each other,
And
so
I
we
actually
got
have
it.
a question. As soon as I get off, I'm going to be texting you a question that I have.
Okay, no
So,
problem.
and I'm not
I'm an
hinting of
open book.
I'm not letting anybody know what the fuck I'm going to ask. But anyway, so I'll
Okay,
talk to you soon. Have a
okay.
great night.
Yeah, the question is, you got your pants on or pants off?
We already know the answer to that.
I know. See you later, brother.
All right, take care. All
Yeah, love you.
right, love you too, brother. All right, so folks, I can't thank you enough for your contribution to my live shows, to my life, because they are very much integrated at this point. So for all the folks that spent any amount of time in here, I don't care if it's a minute, I don't care if it's the whole 2 hours, whatever it is, I appreciate it. I appreciate the commentary, the likes, the gifting. all that good stuff. And, when you share, like all of it, I just appreciate everything that you do every night. And I always look forward to it. So, with any luck, we will be back here again tomorrow night at 10 p.m. Eastern. Until then, peace, love, and granola. Talk to you soon.